All right, so it says here it's very difficult to figure out and draw the similar triangles. They don't line up the way they would think they would from the picture. I hate doing it. All right, if somebody asks me to draw these similar triangles, it's like super painful. I got to really look at the angles and try to figure it out. It takes me probably 2 or 3 minutes to figure out if they're even right. And after that, I got to solve the problem. It's not easy. All right, it's not easy. It's not worth it. So a lot of people do it this way now. It's something that I saw in a book when I first started teaching, and I realized that even though this isn't ideal, it works way better than trying to deal with those similar triangles. All right, so there's these two proportions here that I can remember that will let me deal with these problems, and this is a Regents exam question every single year, and it's very easy to do if you know the rules. All right, so the first rule is the piece one over altitude equals altitude over piece two. Remembering that the pieces are the pieces of the hypotenuse. The reason this works is because if you set up the similar triangles and you then went through and mash up the corresponding sides and put them in proportions, you would get this proportion. All right, so piece one, altitude, altitude, piece two. In that order, in those spots, always works. All right, the other one is entire hypotenuse over a leg is equal to a leg over a piece of the hypotenuse. Now, this one you got to be careful with because there's two legs in the picture and there's two pieces of the hypotenuse. The leg and the piece of the hypotenuse have to be touching each other. All right, so the leg and the piece of the hypotenuse have to be touching each other. Now, you're sitting here right now and you're like, what is he even talking about? This doesn't make any sense. I get it. All right, but if you practice this and if you memorize, first of all, the two rules right there, this is very, very doable. I will side note this. Many can be solved with multi-step trig problems. Now, that is not easier. If you're really good at trig, it might be easier because you don't have to memorize these. But in the situation where you only know the two pieces of the hypotenuse, you can't do multi-step trig problems. You would have to do a really complicated substitution, which I don't know if I think anybody that I've ever met in a geometry class could do. So that's kind of a backup. You can't remember the rule. You don't know what else to do. You could try some trig problems. All right, and maybe it could get you to the right spot, but you'd have to be really, really inventive with what you were doing. You'd have to play around with some angles and stuff and be willing to really, really do some thinking.